Here's the English translation of your text, keeping the same depth and spirit. You have stepped through the Lotus Treasury gate, where all illusions dissolve and truth begins to speak. But this is only the beginning. Part 2. The 10 grounds will lead you into an unprecedented journey, where every step is a spiritual challenge and a profound transformation of the inner self. In this part, the monk enters the stage of joy, stage of purity, stage of radiance, each ground a mysterious world, each a moment of facing oneself. From the laughter that leaves no echo, to acts of selflessness, to the brilliance of wisdom shining forth, all will open the doorway of awakening right within everyday life. This is not just a story, but a mirror reflecting your own path of practice. Don't miss it. Subscribe to Dharma Cloud and turn on the notification bell to journey alongside each sacred episode, where every video is a key to unlock the gates of your own consciousness. If you are watching this now, it is certainly no coincidence. It is the karmic connection the universe has sent to you. Here's the full English translation of your Chun Tin Huan He. Chapter 10. The Stage of Joy. It is not because something is attained that joy arises, but because no one remains in the mind to be held onto. Samantapat 1. Joy does not come from achievement. The first feeling when entering the stage of joy is not an explosion of delight. There is no celebration, no lotus blooming, no celestial music, only a lightness, as if the body had lost all weight. The whole body of the monk seemed to float in a gravity-free field, similar to a microgravity state. But the difference was this: it was the weight of the ego that had vanished. No one left to be recognized. No one left to attain enlightenment. No longer the thought, I have passed the first 8 chapters, and at that very moment, Dharma joy arises. 2. What is Dharma joy? Dharma joy is not a smile, nor is it excitement. It is the state in which biological vibrations synchronize with the release of self-view, causing the entire nervous system to reset into balance without relying on external conditions. Heart, brain, lungs oscillate and sync. Electrical potential among cells decreases in amplitude, stability increases, the parasympathetic nervous system awakens, and the mind ceases all craving. Joy does not arise because of having. It arises because there is no longer the need to have. 3. The monk meets one who needs no gratitude. On a golden straw field, he saw a man picking up small pieces of trash, placing them on his shoulders. He asked, "Why do you pick them up?" The man replied, "Because if not, the wind will blow them into someone's heart." He asked, "Are you happy?" The man looked at him, neither smiling nor sad. "I feel no emotion at all, but I see that I no longer block the wind, and that is enough for the wind to soften." The monk understood. The Bodhisattva's practice is not about being cheerful. It is about no longer seeing I am doing something joyful. Smiling at oneself, then no longer needing to smile. The monk smiled for no reason at all, only because there was no one left who had to be solemn. And for the first time, he heard his own laughter without echo, because the wall of the ego no longer stood to reflect sound. That laughter, then silence. No attempt to hold joy, for true joy needs no keeper. Number 5. The science of the stage of joy. When the mind enters the state of non-attachment joy, the brain releases endorphins, oxytocin, and serotonin simultaneously. But unlike worldly pleasures, success, romance, the bliss in this stage does not cause addiction, does not require repeated stimulation, does not give rise to craving mishim. Consciousness vibrates in the high-frequency gamma range, 40 Hz plus, yet with extreme stability. This is the most creative and sacred frequency band, according to research by Professor Richard Davidson, University of Wisconsin. Number 6. Samantabhadra speaks to the one who no longer wants to meet him. While the monk sat under a tree, a breeze carried a wordless voice. You have just passed the hardest stage, not because it is deep, but because most get stuck in the feeling of I have entered the way. From now on, every step will be light, yet each lightness must be let go more deeply. He bowed his head, not as a ritual, but because the mind was so light, there remained only empty space to give thanks to the nameless. Stage of joy. The first vibration when the grip of self-attachment loosens. The trash collector, symbol of egoless action, doing without seeking result. The laughter without echo. Mind no longer has a self to bounce back. Thus joy becomes stainless. True bliss needs no face, no wishes, no praise, only being alone, and even that self dissolves into the silent smile of the Dharma realm. Zen story, ending verses. That laughter was not born of joy, but because no trace of the past was held. Once the heart shook off the rain, sunlight within became needless to add. Picking trash not because of men, but since the wind blows, the heart feels light. That Dharma bears no form or trace, yet why does joy arise within the world? Here is the full English rendering of Chapter 11, The Stage of Purity, Laikodia, translated with care to preserve both meaning and spiritual depth. The Stage of Purity. Do you still hold secret desires, even within your practice? In the stage of purity, the deepest hidden layers are exposed. Only when nothing is left to crave can you touch absolute clarity. The joy just passed, like a transparent glue. The monk stepped out of the stage of joy with a light heart, but the farther he walked, the heavier he felt. Not in the body, but in the subtle thought, I have entered the way. It was not loud, not arrogant, only a quiet warmth pulsing within the heart. I am walking correctly. Others should follow. I am cleaner than before. And then the space around him began to blur. A scent, not foul, not fragrant, only murky, undefined. He had entered the stage of purity. 2. Defilement is not outside, but hides beneath the mind of practice. He came upon a lake, crystal clear. On its surface, a man was washing his hands, his face. That man was himself. Not an illusion, but a subtle reflection in his consciousness, mirroring every noble deed he had ever performed. His hands washed, yet the water grew more turbid. His face shone, yet the mirror grew dimmer. What am I doing wrong? He asked, and from the lowest delta waves of his mind, a voice replied, You are washing with the invisible dust of believing yourself to be clean. It is not the action that pollutes, but the one who acts. And why? Admirash 3. Unveiling the invisible defilement. In Buddhism and quantum insight. In Buddhist psychology, this is called subtle impurities of purity, the hidden ego of diligence, often appearing as clinging to the image of being virtuous, feeling I have transcended desire, anger, ego. Secret comparisons, I have fewer delusions than others. Identifying practice with identity. In neuroscience, this corresponds to an addiction to the inner chemistry of virtue, when the brain secretes serotonin as it enjoys its own moral progress. This defilement is not made of sins, but of virtue silently labeled with the self. 4. Meeting the one who walks behind, but never needs to surpass. Amid the forest mist, he met a barefoot man, clothed in patches, face dark with ash. The man bowed, asking for water, then washed his face with mud. The monk asked, Why not use clear water? The man replied, Because the dust of the wind clings to my face. Mud holds it, yet does not keep it. Clear water only preserves the shadow of myself. The monk trembled. To wash the face with a mirror, does it truly cleanse? Or does it only train one to grow attached to the image of being clean? Part 5. Samantabhadra resonates in soundlessness. His heart shook. His whole body entered a state where alpha and gamma waves resynchronized, a pattern often found in masters breaking through the hidden layers of ego. Within, a secret voice arose. The stage of purity has nothing to wash. It is only the one holding the cloth that must be released. You are pure, not because you scrub deeply, but because you no longer know who you were to compare. Chapter 6. Practical application. Let go of the thought, I have been diligent. The monk sat down. He did not chant mantras. He did not count breaths. He simply observed each arising thought, like tiny microbes floating in pure water, without hating them, without calling them obstacles, without needing them to disappear. And from there, they dissolved because no one was watching to hold them anymore. His mind became pure, not because it was polished, but because no one remained demanding purity. Symbols and insight. Stage of purity, Laikodia, the stage of breaking attachment to goodness itself, transcending the shadow of one's own diligence. The man washing with mud, symbol of one who no longer reacts to appearances, thus not deceived by reflections of light. The clear lake that holds a reflection represents the habit of measuring oneself by virtue. Still a subtle delusion. The mind is not pure because it shines. It is pure because there is no one left to gaze, nothing left to wash, and no one left to wash it. Zen verses. Though the mirror gleams bright and clear, as long as it holds reflections, it is not pure. One release of silent craving, and clarity flows, nameless, formless. That man no longer wears familiar robes, yet his heart has forgotten even himself. No one is clean, no one defiled, and walking through dust, still seated as a flower. Here is the English rendering of Chapter 12, The Stage of Radiance, Phat Quang Dia, translated with care to keep its poetic, meditative spirit intact. Chapter 12, The Stage of Radiance. Wisdom does not help you know more, but leaves no one behind to know. Samantabhadra. 1. Light without a source. As the monk stepped out of the stage of purity, a gentle radiance appeared. No sun, no lamp, no rays, no shadows. Yet the whole space was suffused with a formless clarity, like an inner luminosity of consciousness, without waves, yet penetrating all. Everything became clear, not because it was bright, but because there was nothing left to cover. 2. Wisdom is not light for seeing. He walked across an open field. Whenever a thought arose, this Dharma is profound, this is wisdom. I am seeing the essence. The light instantly dimmed, not because it was blocked, but because light exists only when no one defines it. Realizing this, the radiance returned, not to illuminate anything. It simply was, when no one tried to use it. 3. The guide without eyes. He met a blind man, holding a bamboo staff, thin, clothed in white. The man walked through cliffs without stumbling. The monk asked, "You cannot see. Are you not afraid of losing your way?" The man replied, "Those who see often follow what they think they see. But I walk by a light not in the eyes." The monk fell silent. Vision does not lead to insight. Only when sight ceases, true seeing begins. 4. What is wisdom? Through Buddhism and quantum physics. 1. In Buddhism, in the Abhimukhī Sutra, the stage of radiance is where the bodhisattva's wisdom awakens, not through logic, analysis, or discourse, but through the nature of seeing as empty and still, a mind that no longer seeks, illumination without subject. Wisdom arises not from learning more, but from the complete silence of the need to know. 2. In quantum physics, it is like light beyond wave and particle, in the vacuum field, existing but unmanifest, only appearing when disturbed. So too with wisdom. When no one uses it, it illuminates all. When someone claims it, it withdraws, awaiting the dissolution of self. 5. Light ignites within the heart. He sat down, closed his eyes. No chanting, no technique, no methodical meditation, only stillness. And within that stillness, a directionless light spread from the heart to the fingertips, then rose to the forehead like a lotus blooming, yet neither hot nor moving. The pineal gland expanded, releasing endogenous DMT, evoking a state of supralogical insight, beyond images, beyond emotions, beyond conceptual thought. Nothing new was seen. Only this was known: everything is oneself and no one is oneself. 6. A voice that cannot be heard. A silent transmission. Wisdom is the radiance of pure knowing, not what you have accumulated. If you need wisdom to understand Dharma, then Dharma is still outside you. But if wisdom arises only when no one remains to wield it, then Dharma reveals itself. He opened his eyes. Nothing had changed, yet his eyes no longer needed to see. Symbols and insight. The sourceless light, symbol of insight that does not arise from knowledge, but from cessation of seeking. The blind man walking true. Wisdom that moves without relying on intellect. Light that illuminates nothing, the stage of non-doing illumination. No aim, no motive, no act. The stage of radiance does not make you brighter. It makes you no longer the one who seeks brightness. Zen verses. Closing, wisdom is not from studies deep, but when the questions fade in silence. One moment where no self remains seated, the light no longer pulls us in. The blind man walks through dream's veil, yet his steps enter the true path. No shining, no clinging, no dividing, and in stillness, a radiance is born. Here's the English rendering of Chapter 13, The Stage of Blazing Wisdom, Dimhuet, translated to preserve the fiery meditative essence of the text. Chapter 13, The Stage of Blazing Wisdom. True wisdom does not illuminate the path ahead, but burns away the one who walks. Samantabhadra, hidden saying. 1. No longer light, only fire. Stepping out of the stage of radiance, the monk expected to enter an even brighter realm. Instead, he found absolute darkness, no wind, no direction, no magnetic field for the mind to synchronize with, only heat, an invisible fire Not from outside, but born from the subtle thought, I have attained wisdom. A single trace of thought, I have seen the way, was enough to ignite flames from the depth of thusness. 2. The fire does not come from anywhere. It was always here. The entire field of the stage of blazing wisdom was a thermic field generated by subtle notions equivalent to an explosive rise of inner entropy, a quantum heat wave permeating the body. The monk did not see fire, but every idea began to soften, then crumble to ash. I am meditating, burned. This is the stage of blazing wisdom, burned. I know that I am knowing, burned. No one set him aflame. It was his own gaze that made the forest of Dharma burn silently. F3. Meeting the one without a shadow. He encountered a man standing amidst the fire, garments untouched, form still, eyes closed. The man said, "You are burning because you still hold a spark of pride. You mistake it for light. But, in truth, it is a spark consuming your own virtue." The monk asked, "Why do you not burn?" The man replied, "Because I have no form for flames to catch, no shadow to hold the light, no intention to exist as a practitioner. Thus, the fire has nowhere to cling." 4. Fire in Buddhism and the burning away of the ego of wisdom. In the Avatamsaka Sutra, the stage of blazing wisdom is where insight reaches its peak. Yet if one still clings to being the possessor of wisdom, it is consumed. Buddhism calls this subtle attachment to wisdom, when the practitioner identifies with understanding, believes oneself above those who do not understand, mistakes wisdom as the final goal rather than the means to relinquish even wisdom. In energy science, this is the stage when cortical awareness overloads, the sympathetic nervous system erupts, creating the phenomenon of the fire of wisdom burning the ego, akin to a spiritual plasma event where all neural connections are restructured. 5. Samantabhadra whispers in the fire. You think light is to see, but truly light exists to dissolve all seeing. When you no longer need to distinguish, no longer need to know more, no longer take pride in understanding, then you will not burn. Not because the fire ends, but because you have become ash, and ash has nothing left to burn. Shatter 6. Stillness for the fire to burn. He did not flee, did not resist, did not use meditation power to cool the fire. He simply stood still, waiting for the ash to fall. Each layer of I am knowing crumbled into dust of light. His whole body blazed, but the heart did not contract in reflex. The flames rose, then passed, and the monk was no longer there, only a soft drift of ash carried into silence. Symbols and insight. Stage of blazing wisdom, the level where attachment to wisdom itself is incinerated, the ego disguised as insight. The man without a shadow, the mind emptied completely, leaving no foothold for fire. Ash, symbol of the Dharma body, freed of self-concept, like soil made fertile after burning, ready for seeds to sprout. Wisdom is nothing at all, once no one remains to call oneself the knower. Zen verses. Closing, a single spark left unconsumed, and the fire rages through the body. One moment without striving to step, ash becomes the subtle Dharma body. That one stood within the sea of flames, yet no shadow left for pain to grasp. One time letting the fire burn in silence, wisdom sank deep into the heart of thusness. Here is the English rendering of Chapter 14, the hard-to-conquer stage, Nantangdiya, translated to keep the subtle, paradoxical depth of the original. Chapter 14, the hard-to-conquer stage. To conquer others is easy. To conquer the ego hiding in kindness, in virtue, in firmness, that is hard to conquer. Samantabhadra, hidden saying. 1. No more fire, yet heat remains. Leaving the stage of blazing wisdom, the monk no longer saw flames. No light, only a field of warmth, even, gentle, neither threatening nor comforting. Nothing to oppose, no one attacking. Yet he knew this was the deepest layer of subtle illusion. No demons, but hidden delusion dressed as virtue. No trap, but the mind's own, I have seen, became the chain. 2. Meeting one who loves all, except himself. On a sandy path, the monk met a monk in gray robes, staff in hand, face serene, eyes bright. He helped the blind cross the road. He gave water to the thirsty. He accepted no offerings. All who saw him bowed with respect. The monk lowered his head. The man smiled. No need. We are the same. The monk asked, "Why do you not rest?" He said, "Because no one's suffering has ended." The monk asked, "Are you not weary?" The man replied, eyes moist, lips still smiling, "I dare not be tired. For if I stop, who will love them in my place?" 3. Compassion without clinging. But I am compassionate, still binds. The monk understood. That man was chained by his very compassion. It was no longer true compassion. It was the ego disguised as bodhisattva. No one would blame such deeds. Yet in the deepest layer, the monk felt the subtle dissonance, where the action was compassion, but the mind's vibration pressed the pineal gland, forbidding release. When compassion is no longer a cool stream, but a burden self-imposed, it ceases to be virtue. It becomes fear of losing the image of being good. Number 4, conquering self, or trying to beautifully conquer self. He paused beneath a tree. A tiny thought arose. I am not like him. I have surpassed this. At once, his whole body tightened. A subtle neurochemical surge, dopamine seeping through, caused his organs to contract microscopically. The monk trembled. The very thought, I have conquered his goodness, was the second-level illusion, the hardest to overcome. The hard-to-conquer stage is not where you conquer others. It is where you conquer the one in your mind who believes he no longer needs to conquer. 5. Samantabhadra's whisper, light as wind. You have just seen. Every good deed, if not forgotten as yours, is a slow fire simmering. This stage is not hard because it is terrible, but because no one believes it is an obstacle. One who longs to liberate others easily forgets to liberate himself. One who does not see he loves others only for fear of being forgotten is carrying the most subtle karmic bond of goodness. Hasher 6. Stillness, as if nothing to conquer. The monk sat down, did nothing. He observed each subtle layer of craving, hoping someone notices his deep understanding, hoping someone recognizes he is free of attachment, hoping not to hope anymore. And at last, all hopes fell, not because he forced them, but because the one who hoped had dissolved. Symbols and insight, the hard-to-conquer stage, the ground of virtuous delusion where the practitioner clings to the shadow of holiness. The over-compassionate monk, symbol of bodhisattva mind still bound by role and duty. The feeling, I have surpassed him, the most subtle illusion, hard to detect, but once seen, the gate opens. It is hard not because obstacles are many, but because the one who makes them looks very much like a saint. Zen verses, closing. Sometimes the gentle and good harbor the deepest shadows of ego past. One who dares not rest at noon turns compassion excessive, burdening Dharma's body. One clear glimpse within, the heart no longer caught in bodhisattva's role. No one to carry on in secret, just living true, and chains dissolve. Here is the English rendering of Chapter 15, the stage of presence, Hintindia, carefully kept in its meditative, luminous tone. Chapter 15, the stage of presence. When no one interprets, Dharma reveals itself. When no one walks forward, the realm walks back. Samantabhadra? 1. As soon as I have realized is released, Dharma reveals itself. The monk stepped out of the hard-to-conquer stage. No emotion, no thought, no joy. Only a spaciousness without resistance to anything. A leaf drifted by. He did not think, that is impermanence. Did not arise, that is life. Did not hold, that is something to observe. Yet in that instant, his whole body vibrated like a receiver of Dharma waves, wireless, resistance-free, flawless. He had entered the stage of presence, Hintindia. 2. Dharma neither comes nor goes. Before him, nothing different. Same landscape, same earth, soft wind, birds flying, but all seemed to fall out of their conceptual shells. No longer cool breeze, no longer free bird, no longer phenomena to contemplate. They simply were, not belonging to anyone who was seeing. No seer, no intention to see. Yet Dharma appeared, clear, silent, like a current without source. -3 Dharma is not for interpretation, but for nothing left to interpret. He came upon an old stone and sat down. A child passed, pointing, that man is meditating. He did not turn, did not affirm, did not deny, for naming is the last act of a mind still divided. When one says, I am meditating, there is still I and meditation. But in the stage of presence, nothing remains to be called, so all things appear in their primal form. 4. The present state in Zen and quantum physics. 1. In Zen, called seeing one's nature beyond words, perceiving without labeling, naming, or assigning meaning. No concepts arising, no comparisons made, no accumulation kept. Everything appears exactly as it is, without addition, without reduction, without surplus thought. 2. In quantum physics, it corresponds to superposition, when a system, unobserved, remains in pure potential, not collapsed into any definite state. The practitioner in the stage of presence ceases to collapse phenomena into distinctions. They do not look at Dharma, but become part of Dharma manifesting. 5. Samantabhadra without form. One day, not clearly morning nor evening, a voice came from behind. From here, you no longer need to ask, what stage is this? For when Dharma appears just as it is, you are no longer climbing, you are dissolving, and every stage is but one surface of suchness. The monk did not turn. For who would turn? And turn to see whom? Only a silent resonance flowed through his body, empty yet complete. Tashra 6, purification of interpreting Dharma. That night he sat, no chanting, no entering meditation, no observing, not knowing whether he was in samadhi or not. Doing nothing, yet every Dharma seemed to transform within each cell. No intention, yet vital energy moved like a wordless current. His brainwaves settled into deep alpha 8 Hz, where sympathetic and parasympathetic systems harmonized, no opposing oscillations. This was the energy state needing no will, but living by pure presence. Symbols and insight, the stage of presence, the ground of non-abiding, no object, no divided seeing. The unchosen stone, symbol of Dharma not arising from anywhere special. No need for meditation, yet the whole body is meditation. Meditation as the living essence, no longer a created state. When no question remains, no answer remains. And when no one needs to understand, Dharma reveals itself fully. Zen verses, closing. Sitting, not knowing for what, yet in each breath, Dharma reigns quietly. No one calls, no one aware, yet the old scene now unveils true path. Birds fly without lifting the gaze, yet I suddenly see steps never taken. One time without anyone rejoicing, Dharma appears as though it had never been far. Here is the English rendering of chapter 16, the stage of far-going, Vienhandiya, translated to keep its poetic, non-linear, and meditative depth. Chapter 16, the stage of far-going. Virtue is not in the place you arrive, but in having no place left to reach. The journey does not end, for no one ever began to walk. Samantabhadra. 1. Walking without arrival, yet never lost. There was no gate, no sign that read the stage of far-going. The monk only found himself walking endlessly, across a vast wilderness. No path, no obstacle, no sound to orient him. He walked all day, yet remained in the same place, but it was never a repetition, for the mind no longer compared with the past. Each step was new, though the scene unchanged. Each breath was whole, though the wind unmoved. 2. The traveler without feet. He met a man with no feet, yet still walking. The man carried a bag of water, never drinking, carried food, never eating. The monk asked, "Where are you going?" The man smiled, "I am not going anywhere. I only do not stay. For if I stand still, the mind will cling. Where there is clinging, there is obstruction." The monk asked, "If you are not going anywhere, why carry water?" The man replied, "So that someone thirsty may borrow it." 3. Action without actor. The path opens when no path is needed. The stage of far-going is where the bodhisattva acts without knowing he is acting, records no merit, demands no fruit, does not care if those saved are grateful or not. Action not bound by goal. Movement not guided by map, but by the resonance of compassion. In physics, this is a state of nonlinear dynamics, not moving toward an endpoint, yet producing ripples that spread like gravitational waves. Touching space without touching. 4. Gratitude with no one to receive it. An old man bowed before the monk. The monk did not know why, did not know what he had done. The old man said, "Thank you for not advising me." The monk did not answer. For if he said, "I did not advise you," it would still affirm an act. But here there was no act. Only a presence radiant enough for the man's blindness to dissolve on its own. 5. Samantabhadra, in a footstep without trace. The monk did not stop, but did not try to walk either. A breeze brushed his shoulder like a soft whisper. Walking not to arrive is when every place you step is revealed as the Dharma realm. Not because you are someone, but because you are no one. And only then, walking becomes true practice. Chapter 6. The energy system of far-going. In the state of non-abiding mind, action without seeking, the monk's body entered complete bioelectrical coherence. Heart, breath, brainwaves, perfectly synchronized, optimal HRV. Nervous system calmed of reaction, heightened silent perception. Energy field, biofield expanded 3 to 5 meters, radiating subtle biological influence without contact. This is the Bodhisattva's liberation through presence, without need of specific action. Symbols and insight, stage of far going, the ground of nonlinear practice, no direction, no destination, no reward. The man without feet, symbol of one beyond reliance on faculties, free of expedient means. The old man bowing for not being taught, expression of the silent efficacy of presence, transforming without guiding. When walking is no longer to arrive, every step is Dharma in motion. When there is no actor, action becomes a boundless healing force. Zen verses. Closing. One who does not step still walks, stillness. What need is there for feet? One time without thought of nearing, each breeze already opens into light. Sometimes with no one to praise, yet in a single step the Dharma heart flows. Far going is not gazing to horizons, but spreading selflessness quietly everywhere. Here is the English rendering of Chapter 17, the stage of immovability, but Dongdia, translated to preserve the meditative, luminous quality of the original. Chapter 17, the stage of immovability. Samadhi does not mean the body unmoving, but the mind no longer has one to move or to stop. Stability is not by holding firm, but by having nowhere for the self to sway. 1. The monk stops as if he never walked. No warning, no change of scene. Only that as his last step of the stage of far going fell, the monk could not take another. No one blocked him, no obstacle stood. Simply, he had touched the center of the unmoving. Not silence, yet not noise, not empty, yet containing nothing. He stood still like an object no longer within coordinates. Not stillness, but the falling away of the notion of movement and stillness. Samadhi is not holding tight. He sat down, back straight, eyes half closed, no breath counting, no mindfulness practice. He was not meditating, yet his whole being was meditation. Every biological rhythm slowed. His heart rate dropped, not by will, but because the entire sympathetic and parasympathetic systems reached natural balance. His autonomic nervous system was no longer led by fear, craving, or any goal. 3. The zero-point field of consciousness. In quantum physics, the lowest, most stable state of energy is called the zero-point field, a ground where oscillations arise and vanish, yet the ground itself neither comes nor goes. The stage of immovability is the spiritual equivalent, the ground of non-fluctuating mind, allowing every vibration to arise and fade naturally, like the background screen of the quantum cosmos, not shining, yet enabling every light to appear. In this state, brainwaves drop to 4 to 6 hertz, deep theta. The body's bioenergy shifts into a closed circuit, chi, electricity, mind, blood, heart, forming a self-stabilizing loop with no leakage. 4. Meeting one who sits, with no one sitting. To his left, the monk saw a man seated, unmoving, yet with no aura of stillness. Not like one in meditation, but like an emptiness in human shape. He approached. The man said, "If you are holding the mind still, you are still very restless. Immovability does not come from holding, but from no one left to hold." Number 5. Wisdom of Samadhi in Buddhism and Energy Science. 1. In Buddhism, in the 10 grounds, the stage of immovability is where the practitioner's mind is no longer swayed by the 8 worldly winds: praise, blame, honor, disgrace, gain, pleasure, pain. Not by neglect, but because the mind no longer clings to any name or form. This is Samadhi not because one seeks stillness, but stillness arises naturally from non-abiding. 2. In energy science, energy no longer flows through chakras in sequence, but the entire body synchronizes. The biofield becomes transparent, no strong pulses, having merged with the background resonance of Dharma. 6. Samantabhadra appears, like a mirror without reflection. In that state, a pale white form appeared before him, not moving, not radiating, not vibrating. He knew it was Samantabhadra. No need for words, for no one remained to hear. Only a silent transmission into the supralinguistic field of awareness. You need not hold the mind. Only release the one who holds. When no one resists the wind need not blow strong. When no one clings to the way begins to live. Dissolving into Samadhi, yet still knowing. He was no longer sitting, nor standing. Not inhaling, not exhaling, yet alive. Not thinking, yet aware. All had shifted into hollow Samadhi, perception without analysis. Directly living with the object, with no one in between. The mind, without boundary, without self. only the midpoint of non-time space, where energy and non-energy coexist without need for distinction. Symbols and insight, stage of immovability, not the body motionless, but the mind unmoved by any stimulus inside or out. The man sitting as emptiness, symbol of mind without subject, thus no karma created. The spiritual 0 point, the deepest ground of samadhi, no reaction, no possession, no method required. When there is no reason to hold stillness, stillness becomes the natural ground, unmade, unbroken. Zen verses. Closing one unmoving hand and foot, yet within the stillness, Dharma's body turns. One time without guarding calm, the way reveals itself in the midst of void. No one thinking, no one watching, yet in each breath flows the ocean deep. Seated here, not to last long, but in immovability, turns into soundless hue. Here is the English rendering of Chapter 18, the stage of good wisdom, Thiện Huệ Địa, keeping the subtle warning tone about egoic wisdom intact. Chapter 18, the stage of good wisdom. The kind of knowing that makes you see yourself as deeper than others is the thickest wall between you and true insight, Samantabhadra. 1. When no one asks, but one who answers still remains. The monk left the stage of immovability. No joy. No stillness, only a quiet knowing that needed no recording. Yet within that radiance, a figure appeared. No robe, no ritual, only sitting with the air of one who clearly knew exactly where he sat. The figure smiled and said, "Greetings, one who has gone beyond samadhi. I am you, but you as comprehension." The monk bowed, not from reverence, but to look closely. This was the one who knew every theory, every interpretation, every symbol, every metaphor. The one who translated all experience into meaning, and thus nothing remained raw, alive. 2. The danger of one who knows even not knowing. The figure continued, "I am the one who understands even unknowing. Therefore, I rest securely in the knowledge that I no longer need knowledge." The monk shivered, not from fear, but from recognizing that only yesterday he had entertained that very thought. "I have transcended ideas. I no longer need explanation. I have seen everything as presence itself." Those thoughts were still an I, only now shaped like a learned bodhisattva, deep, composed, yet no longer moving forward. 3. Ego-less wisdom, or wisdom of the subtle ego. The monk walked, the figure walked beside him. Their pace matched, their breath in rhythm, words refined, but he helped no one. His heart did not stir at suffering. He ventured nowhere beyond the sphere of understanding. He only sat interpreting the world. No sorrow, no joy, no presence. Only wisdom turned into armor against life itself. 4. The psychology and energy of enough knowing. In neuroscience, there is a phenomenon called cognitive closure. When the brain believes it has fully understood something, it shuts down the centers for open awareness. The mind no longer learns deeper. The energy field contracts, no longer receptive. That person becomes impenetrable, yet loses permeability. This is the state of closed wisdom, often disguised as humility. But in truth, it is one who has stopped midway, mistaking the halt for arrival. 5. Samantabhadra speaks in stillness. You have studied much, and that knowledge once freed you from ignorance. But now, if you hold it as a spiritual constant, it becomes the axiom that binds you. True liberating insight does not lie in what is known, but in the deeper release of the one who knows. 6. The monk neither refutes nor praises. He stopped on the path, did not try to surpass the figure, did not try to smash that image. He simply sat, breathed, and let every notion of having understood fall. No more profound dharma, no more I am awake, no more someone needs me to show the way. Only living, with no need to prove anything to anyone, not even himself. Symbols and insight, the stage of good wisdom, the ground of surpassing the ego of knowledge, the self cloaked in insight, virtue, erudition, the one who knows all, symbol of intellect hardened unalive, the bowing back to oneself, the gesture of awakening without force, one step back and the illusion shatters. To see Dharma not through concepts, but through raw living, unlabeled. Only then does insight return to its right role, a means to release, not a crutch to cling to. Hard Zen verses, closing. One who grasps the depth entire, yet in his eyes no one desired. But that depth hides no truth today, for in such knowing the self still stays. One time of not knowing what is wise, each breath floods with Dharma's rise. No teaching left, no clarity named, the mind lives true, like a form unnamed. Here's the English rendering of Chapter 19, the stage of Dharma Cloud, Phumdhya, translated to preserve its luminous and dissolving tone. Chapter 19, the stage of Dharma Cloud. You no longer speak, no longer teach, no longer convert anyone, yet the Dharma Cloud from your very being reigns across all realms of life. For Dharma is never created, it only needs not be obscured. Samantabhadra. 1. Neither far nor near. Like clouds that do not cling to sky, there was no entrance, no footprints, only a gentle drifting within subtle space where body had no weight, mind no anchor, Dharma no boundary. He did not move forward, nor did he stop. It was simply the state of diffusing Dharma like clouds unaware that they are giving rain. This was the stage of Dharma Cloud, no display, no discourse, no form to hold. Yet everywhere, Dharma was watered. 2. He no longer knew he was teaching. Like light, unaware it shines. The monk stood in a white plain. One person wept, he did not console. Another fell, he did not lift. A child trembled, he did not embrace. He did nothing, yet all were calmed. Because his biofield had shifted into the state of non-doing Dharma transmission, a spiritual resonance that harmonized compassion without words, without will. 3. Bioenergetics, the state of Dharma transmission without act. In energy biology, the human body radiates an electromagnetic field, biofield. In deep absorption, this field expands and synchronizes holistically. When the practitioner no longer has an eye directing the flow, the field becomes rain, diffused, directionless, effortless. At that moment, heart rate variability reached its peak coherence, brain waves stabilized into sustained gamma, full 40 hertz. Prefrontal cortex, the center of ego and naming, shut down. The body became a diffuser of compassion, Dharma transmitted as an invisible spectrum of light. Chapter 4. The Avatamsaka Sutra, reigning Dharma as the practice of the Dharma body. In the 10 grounds chapter of the Avatamsaka Sutra, the Dharma cloud ground is described. The Bodhisattva no longer needs to teach, yet all beings are transformed. No longer raising great vows, yet the great vow manifests of itself. No longer saying, I act, yet Dharma spreads like clouds, like rain, like moonlight shining everywhere. Here, formal teaching has ended. Each breath is a sutra, each glance is a mantra, each presence a wordless sermon. 5. Meeting one who needs no teaching. The monk sat silently in a garden. A young woman came, sat beside him without a word. After a while, she rose, her eyes no longer restless. He had never asked, she had never spoken. There was no listener, no teacher. Only two fields resonating into harmony, Dharma transmitted not through words, but through the state of luminous presence. 6. Samantabhadra does not appear, yet the whole sky speaks. A breeze touched his ear, cool but not wind. He heard, from now on you need not act further. No more propagation, no more refusal, for you have become a fragment of Dharma realm itself, and clouds never know they are clouds, yet the sky always receives the rain. 7. Reigning Dharma without choosing beings. From then on, wherever he passed, the wicked ceased resentment, the foolish broke into tears, the drunk fell silent a moment, the child stopped mischief. No one knew why, nor was there need. He had done nothing, yet Dharma from him had already become the subtle force saturating samsara's weave. Symbols and insight. Dharma cloud ground, the realm of invisible transmission. Beyond effort, Dharma reigning from the Dharma body. Not knowing one is teaching, the sole condition for Dharma to shine in full. Presence, without will, without barrier, without aim. The Bodhisattva's post-10 ground state, merging into the Tathagata storehouse. When Dharma body is born by no one, each breath is rain falling upon places never yet named. Zen verses. One time without a word of truth, yet Dharma reigned full around us. Meeting one without a call, still he walked beyond illusion's dust. One time without a single step, where he arrived, the Dharma heart was near. Rain that never waits for drums, each drop dissolving into silent light. Here's the English version of your closing call to action text, kept strong, heartfelt, and engaging for YouTube. You have walked with the monk through the 10 grounds, each stage a shock to the soul, each step a transformation like never before. And now the question arises, will you simply watch and move on, or will you take the next step on your own journey of awakening? If these words have touched your heart, then hit the subscribe button right now. because the next part will be deeper, more intense, and even more liberating. Like this video to plant a seed of good karma and help the message spread far and wide. Turn on the notification bell so when the new episode is released, you'll be the very first to receive the key to the next gateway of consciousness. Share this video with someone who may need to hear it today. Who knows, you might become the very condition that helps them discover their path to freedom. Remember, between just watching and moving on, you lose only a few seconds, but between following and not following, you could miss an entire journey of enlightenment. The choice is yours, and that choice will change everything. Do you want me to craft an SEO-optimized title plus description, 3 parts, plus hashtags for this video ending so it syncs perfectly with YouTube's 2025 algorithm?